Hello. I wanted to give a quick overview of some of the available layout widgets in Owlkettle. In this video, we're going to discuss the box, grid, and overlay widgets. Since Owlkettle is based on GTK, all of these layouts also exist in GTK, though the API may be different. Let's start with the box layout. A box arranges its children along one dimension. Boxes are the most common layout widget you will encounter when working with Owlkettle. If you're familiar with CSS, the box layout kind of works like the flexbox layout. Here's a simple box layout with 3 children. Currently, it arranges them along the x-axis. We can change its axis using the orient field. When you change it to orient y, the children are arranged in a column. The spacing field specifies the distance between the children. If you increase its value, the gaps between the children become larger. Let's revert our changes and look at the available properties. Properties are used to modify where the child widgets are placed within a container. Which properties are available only depends on the type of the container widget, not on the type of the child widget. The expand property controls if the child widget will grow to use up remaining space in the box. By default, expand is set to true for each child. When we explicitly change the expand property of the first child to false, we can see that the child shrinks back to its natural size. The h-align and v-align properties allow us to position the child within its allocated area. By default, both the horizontal and vertical alignment are set to fill the allocated area. When we change the vertical alignment of the second child, we can move it to the top, center, or bottom of its allocated area. Let's use multiple boxes to create a simple layout. Here we have a header bar at the top, a navigation bar on the left, the main content in the center, and a sidebar on the right. Note that the sidebar does not extend all the way to the bottom. We are going to use 2 boxes to create this layout. First, we create a vertical box. It contains the header, and a second nested box. The nested box is oriented horizontally and contains the navbar, the main content, and the sidebar. We disable the expand property of the header, navbar, and sidebar so that they do not grow to take up any remaining space. In order to ensure that the sidebar doesn't extend to the bottom, we use the v-align property to move it to the top of its allocated area. The grid layout is the most complex layout in Owlkettle. It arranges its children in a grid. The position of each child in the grid is specified through the x and y properties. Children can also span across multiple grid cells. You can control the number of grid cells a child extends across by setting the width and height properties. By default, every child extends across 1 cell, so it has a width and a height of 1. Let's set the width of the B widget to 2. As you can see, it now extends across 2 cells horizontally. The h-expand and v-expand properties control whether children take up remaining space. Let's enable the h-expand property of the C widget. Note that the whole column of C expands to fill up any remaining space. Just like the box widget, you can use h-align and v-align to align the child within its allocated area. We can set the h-align of B to align center to center it. The grid widget itself also has fields for setting the spacing between columns and rows. A typical application of grid layouts is creating forms. When creating a form, we want to vertically align the labels and input fields. We add all labels with the x position 0 and all input fields with the x position 1. Here's a simple example of a form created using a grid widget. If you want to experiment with grid layouts, I would recommend using the grid example application. It allows you to create grid layouts interactively and experiment with all the different properties. The overlay layout is used to display multiple widgets on top of each other. It consists of a background widget and multiple overlay widgets which are displayed on top of the background widget. Let's look at a simple example. Assume that we want to create an image viewer. We have a large picture widget that displays the current image. Now we want to display a few controls to go to the next or previous image on top of this picture widget. We can use an overlay layout to display the controls on top of the picture. Let's start by wrapping the picture widget in an overlay layout. Next, we change the vertical alignment to align end to move the controls to the bottom. Finally, we center them by changing the horizontal alignment. In this video, we focused on 3 layout widgets in Owlkettle. The box widget, which arranges its children along one dimension, the grid widget, which arranges its children in a 2-dimensional grid, and the overlay widget, which places children on top of each other. Of course, there are also lots of other layout widgets in Owlkettle. You might want to take a look at the header bar, flowbox and paint widgets. And if you are working with libadwaita, the clamp and flap layouts can be used to build responsive applications. I hope this video was helpful, and feel free to ask any questions in the comments or in the Owlkettle discussions forum.